about 10 seconds. You're more than welcome to keep watching here. You can head over to YouTube, Dr. Nathan Thompson, and watch live. Hey, good evening, everybody. Dr. Nathan Thompson here with Exemplify Health Center, an affiliate of the Wellness Way. Happy Monday evening, guys. It is almost 7 o'clock. I came on just a little bit early. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Hope you guys are having an awesome week. Guys, this week is absolutely crazy for me. I want you to think about this. I think we're celebrating 4 birthdays this week in our family, and then an anniversary. So this is an absolutely crazy week. So I wanted to start a little bit earlier so I could get to be able to get on with my day and enjoy everything else. If you guys are watching right now, let me know where you're watching from. Make sure that you say hello. And as always, guys, please share this video. This is going to be very important because I think a lot of people have questions regarding this. And so when people have these questions, I do my best to try to answer as many as physically possible. But I had a lot of requests of people who wanted to, had questions regarding some of the most popular weight loss medications that are out there today. They're touted as weight loss medications, but they really aren't intended to be weight loss medications, but they're being prescribed off label for these things. So I'm going to show you truly what they are. I'm going to show you how they work. And I'm also going to give you my opinion in regards to why I believe they're a very bad idea to do this. And I'll actually will use what they say about these medications. So let's look at how they work. Let's talk about side effects. And let's talk about it's truly not making you healthy if you need to be on these medications for the rest of your life, even if they are in maintenance doses. So title of today is Beware of These Weight Loss Medications. And the reason why I like to do long format video is because it helps me to go into a lot more detail when it comes to the physiology of anything, weight loss medications, whatever they might be. Because when you truly are looking at the physiology of it, you're going to say, now that I understand the physiology, this doesn't make a lot of sense. So while we're waiting for people to join right now, again, make sure, guys, that you say hello. Make sure you share this video. Please let me know where you're watching from. Coming up, guys, I know that you guys had asked for it. This is going to be a webinar event on Saturday, February 4th. I believe the time is 9 o'clock in the morning, Central Standard Time. So on this, we're going to talk about the biggest roadblocks when it comes to weight loss. And we're going to talk from a different perspective. When it comes to exercise, we're going to talk from a different perspective when it comes to things like estrogen dominance, how your liver plays a role in fat metabolism, and then also where you need to start when it comes to nutrition. And guys, when you look at this from a different perspective, you'll understand that weight loss should not be the goal. Weight loss is the result of healthy habits, of proper testing. And so all you guys have to do is go, if you are on Facebook, you can go to the top of the page and you can register for that event on our Eventbrite link. This is, yes, a webinar, so you can join in from all over the country, all over the world, actually. And yes, there will be a replay for, I believe, a 48-hour replay, so you can go back and catch that if, for example, you happen to miss it. And also, if you're watching on Instagram as well, all you have to do is just go to the link pinned to the top of the profile, and you will see our Eventbrite page. And so you can go ahead and get registered for that as well. February 4th, it'll take about an hour and a half. Please get registered for it. I guarantee you it will be worth your time. And then also, guys, big thing is a lot of people reaching out saying, hey, do you do remote consults, things like that. The first thing is let's help you find a Wellness Way doctor that'll be closest to you. That's always the easiest thing, but we do take some limited consultations. For me, I just had time to do it only on Thursday morning, so I'm a little bit limited because I'm seeing people in person the rest of the time for the rest of the week. And then again, if you're watching from the Chicagoland area, go ahead and you can go to the top. And if you're interested in becoming a patient here at Exemplify Health Center, go ahead, guys, and do me a favor. Go ahead and register for this in-person event. This is going to be on a Tuesday, January 31st at 6 o'clock p.m. Here at Exemplify Health Center, we're going to talk about inflammation, guys. And if you understand the journey to being healthy, the first thing is that you have to handle inflammation. That's the first and foremost thing. Guys, I could talk to you for about 8 hours just about inflammation. It's really just like the number one thing that you do. And then after that, then you have to start to repair and start to rebuild. So inflammation is the first step as far as handling your health. Guys, when it comes to weight loss, resistance, cancer, problems with infertility, thyroid issues, arthritis, type 2 diabetes, autoimmune conditions, hormone issues, and things like that, guys, they all have an inflammatory foundation between that. And I want you guys to think of it is when you look at weight loss resistance, when you look at cancer, when you look at infertility, autoimmune disease, hormone issues, things like that, guys, it's worse than ever before. And you can see that it's getting worse than ever before. I mean, my goodness, there's over 100 different autoimmune conditions that they can now diagnose. And it's only getting worse. And yet it's getting worse. They still say that the body attacks itself. And yet with that perspective, you continually see it get worse and worse and worse. And so all we're doing is showing you from a different perspective why, how we start to think and how we start to do health differently, because you cannot solve the problems that are getting worse with the same level of thinking that created the problem in the first place. And so if you are from the Chicagoland area, go ahead and go to the top of the page. Please register for the inflammation talk Tuesday, January 31st, 6 o'clock p.m. You can go to the top link if you're on Facebook, at our Eventbrite page, and just register straight from there. So guys, let's get into the meat and potatoes of what we're going to be going over tonight is weight loss medications. People ask me, and I ask people too, is people have become, it seems, very resistant to weight loss. There's a lot of different reasons why, guys. We'll talk about it at the roadblocks to weight loss event. But just a little bit of a synopsis is one of the things that influences weight loss, yes, is toxicity. Yes, is inflammation, especially in through the liver. Yes, it can be insulin resistance. Yes, it can be stress. Yes, it can actually be a problem in your microbiome. And yet we still are doing the whole calorie in, calorie out. But guys, if you really have tried that and you are having some issues, especially in through the liver, you're going to see that the needle is not going to move. And so that's why we have to start looking at a lot of other issues when it comes to weight loss. But I will also say this, guys, is if your goal is just to lose weight and affect a number on the scale, the quickest way to do it is to cut off your arm or cut off your leg, lose 10 pounds really quickly, and there you are. The number is different. Or if you're just doing it to look better, guys, what good is it if you look better but you are more unhealthy? So there has always been, popular weight loss medications that have been through the years. If you look in the 50s and you look in the 60s, actually doctors recommend amphetamines. So uppers is what they recommended because they use them as appetite suppressants. Guys, basically uppers, what they do is they're going to pound the adrenals. They're going to release a tremendous amount of adrenaline. And that's going to trick your body into having your tremendous stress response. And yes, that can suppress your appetite. Have you ever noticed if you have a tremendous amount of mental stress, you can see how it suppresses your appetite? You think about it, if a bear is chasing you, now's not a good time to eat. You need to run or you need to fight the bear. So for a long time, it was actually amphetamines. And even guys into like the 90s and 2000s, people were taking very powerful amphetamines for weight loss. And then they said, whoops, look at what we are causing with heart-related issues, because the body can't handle if you are manipulating the body into having that stress response for such a long period of time. So you notice they don't really have those medications anymore. And just remember, if they're switching it, it means that it was dangerous or it just didn't flat out work. If you look at, I believe, into like 2010, up to maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, you notice that they had a medication, it's called Orlistat. Orlistat, all that did was it inhibited the absorption of fats from the intestine. So they said, hey, you can eat a bunch of hydrogenated oils or partially hydrogenated oils. You can go ahead and eat all the bad fats, eat as much fat you want, but if you take this medication, it's just going to block the absorption of those fats. And, because 1 gram of fat has 9 kilocalories per gram, it's much more, will make you much more fat. So people did that, and then they realized, wow, I really have a whole heck of a lot of diarrhea now, and that's not a good thing as well. But if you are looking over the past 5, 6, 7 years, you're going to notice that what has gained traction as a weight loss medication, which is known as off-label prescribing, are type 2 diabetes medications. And what they found is, wow, when we give people these type 2 diabetes medications, I'll go over the ones that they're recommending right now. Wow, people actually lost weight. Maybe we should use this as some kind of weight loss cure. Interesting. And in fact, I've even had, and this was not that long ago, I had a medical doctor come into my office. And I actually respected them quite a bit because they looked at me and they said, listen, this is full disclosure. In my profession, all I do is I give women birth control or I give them hormone replacement therapy. I'm not making them better. And in fact, that's what we're doing to try to manipulate hormones. And they said, I'm having a hard time losing weight myself, no matter what I do. So I put myself on testosterone, progesterone, and I even put myself on metformin, which is kind of a first line of defense when it comes to insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. And I put myself on it just to lose weight. She's like, I don't want to become a lab experiment, yet I think that's what I'm becoming. She said, can you help me do this? And we tested everything, and you could see very insulin resistant, very high stress. Hormones were in the tank because hormones respond to stressors. They don't cause you to be sick. They go down because you are sick. And so now people are starting to dabble into type 2 diabetes medications when it comes to weight loss. I'm going to give you my opinion, what I think that is a horrible idea, and stick with me when we do that. Now, the new medications that they are doing isn't just metformin, but these are called GLP-1 agonists, okay? So you may have seen these, and in fact, you'll see people, if you watch some of the ads on Facebook, you see some of the ads on Instagram, you see, some of these people on TikTok, these obesity specialist doctors, they're basically saying, we're going to give you an injection of this type 2 diabetes medication. So it can be called Ozempic, Wegovy, Saxenda, Trulicity. The new one is called Mounjaro, okay? So we're going to give you this medication and you're going to lose weight from doing it. Now, do these people help these people lose weight? The answer is yes, okay? Now, but if weight loss is your goal, then I will tell you, stop watching this. Go ahead and do that. You're going to run into some problems. But if all you want to do is lose weight, but make yourself sicker in the long term, then go ahead and do it. The goal should never be for weight loss. The goal is to be healthier, and weight loss is the result. Just remember this is you're not sick because you're overweight. You're overweight because you're sick. And the things that happen to make you overweight, that's what actually made you sick. So if you look at the medical profession, they think obesity is the cause for all kinds of disease. But I'm saying it's what you did to cause the obesity. That's what's making you sick as a result. So you guys probably have seen these, Ozempic, Wegovy, Saxenda, Trulicity, and Mounjaro, and that's what they're recommending right now. And in fact, have gotten to the point where there are so many people who are getting prescribed this off-label that there has been shortages in people who, quote unquote, need the medication for their type 2 diabetes, because a lot of doctors say, well, we're only going to use this, we're going to use prudence in prescribing these medications. And I look at this and I wonder, and I say, absolutely not. They are not going to do this. Because even if you look at back in the 90s, 2000s, doctors knew that prescribing an antibiotic in most cases wasn't going to help people because they had a viral infection. But you know what? They admitted that they said, we're going to just give them an antibiotic anyway, because when people come to me, they expect me to prescribe them a medication, and they leave disappointed and angry or upset if I don't give them some kind of medication. So I'm just going to give them what they want. So when they're starting to advertise for this, you know darn well that they're not going to give this to the sickest of people. They're going to start handing this stuff out like candy. That's my prediction, and you watch. And I've predicted a lot of things over the last 3 years, and I have been right. So let's talk about the mechanism of action of these medications. So here's how they work of these GLP-1 agonists. So how they work, they're called glucagon-like peptide receptor agonists. Agonists mean that they work with. Antagonists mean they work against. So they improve blood sugar control by enhancing insulin secretion. So basically what they do is they force the beta cells of the pancreas to increase the secretion of insulin. I'm going to show you why that's not necessarily a good thing at all. And additionally, these agonists slow gastric emptying and then increase satiety and reduce appetite. So they're going to drive up insulin, and then they're going to slow down the movement of food from the stomach and from the duodenum, which is right after the stomach, and then therefore delaying the emptying of the stomach, which will then keep the stomach distended so that you don't want to eat all the time, and then thereby reducing appetite. Okay. Now, guys, if you want to reduce satiety, quit eating so many doggone carbs. Carbs will move very quickly out of the stomach because they don't need to stay there, because most of your proteins stay in the stomach a longer period of time because it takes longer for your stomach and the stomach acid to break them down into smaller amino acids. That's kind of why when you look at nutrition, you're like, you want to feel fuller, add more fat, have more protein, because that will take longer in order to digest and break down, and it will slow down gastric emptying. But the big thing that I want you guys to look at is this right here, because when I look at enhancing insulin secretion, one of the things that I am looking at and that I say is, uh-oh, that's not necessarily a good thing, and I'm going to show you why. Because if you are having problems with weight loss, look at insulin resistance, the inability of your body to be able to respond or hear insulin and not put it into the cells, but shuttle it to fat instead. Well, if you keep adding more insulin, then you're only making insulin resistance even worse. So when you look at some of the adverse effects, this comes from PubMed. This comes from the National Library of Medicine. When they talk about glucagon-like peptide 1 receptor agonist, Wegovy, all of those other ones that I just mentioned, they said the most exhibited side effects include nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea that could lead to acute kidney injury due to volume contraction, dizziness, mild tachycardia, infections, headaches. Now listen to this, and dyspepsia may also occur. Dyspepsia meaning indigestion, dyspepsia meaning heartburn. Now, why on earth could that be causing heartburn? Well, because it will lower stomach acid, which most people are already deficient in stomach acid. And the reason why is because of mental stress. So it will then cause an incomplete breakdown of your foods. That's why, guys, when you look at heartburn, heartburn is not due. Let me say it again, it is not due to having too much stomach acid. It is not having enough stomach acid. And this medication can actually make it worse. Now, when I was doing my research for this talk, I was watching a podcast on YouTube of 2 obesity specialists who did about a 25-minute podcast on all of the side effects that they experience in patients when they start putting them on these weight loss medications. And they talked about all of this, and they're like, yeah, we see it. They see it a lot more often than we like to admit. And how do you handle it? And it all comes down to not just saying you really don't need to be on them. It's decreasing the dosages, or just switching medication, or drinking more water, taking, Pepsid AC, which is just taking another type of medication, even if it's over counter, for another one. And I was watching this in absolute shock, because I'm saying, don't they understand how these are working and how they're not making a person healthier as a result? So these are just some of the side effects, and we're not even talking about long-term either. So when you look at how these GLP-1 antagonists, how they work, is basically 2 ways. Number 1, they're going to increase insulin. And number 2, they're going to slow gastric emptying. All right. Now, If you ever have heard of insulin resistance, guys, basically, if you look at when your blood sugar elevates, your pancreas releases insulin, okay? Insulin is the fat storing hormone. But insulin is the lock and key on the cell membrane to allow glucose to go into a cell to be used for energy. Think like in your liver, for example. And whatever that it can't use, it shuttles off by the liver, packages a triglyceride to be stored as fat. The thing, guys, that's so interesting, and I've done a video on this, is that insulin resistance is actually a protective mechanism by your body, because if you didn't develop insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, and if all your body did was respond to all the sugar you're consuming and having an equal response with insulin and not becoming insulin to it, it would take in so much sugar into the cells. And sugar, guys, is a high amounts of glucose is a dirty fuel. It will produce a lot of oxidative damage, and the cells would actually start to die off. This is why there's only one organ in your body that doesn't become insulin resistant. It's your nerve system. I want you to think about it. With someone who has type 2 diabetes, the first organ to be affected is their nerve system, which is why they have diabetic neuropathies, which is why they have diabetes brain, which is why Alzheimer's and dementia is becoming such a common occurrence now. The body actually protects it and say, we cannot take in this much sugar. And if the body doesn't make a mistake, factor that in and say, maybe insulin resistance actually is trying to protect you. Even though there's going to be damage down the road, it's protecting you right now. So what do you think, guys, is if you try to continue to increase insulin because you're becoming more and more insulin resistant, you keep driving it up more and more. And if you see where I'm going with this, there's not a good resolution to it, because the only thing that you have to do then is continue driving insulin up more and more and more. This is why when it comes to how they're handling type 2 diabetes, they keep driving insulin up. That's why we're going to increase the medication. We're going to make your pancreas work harder. Drive it up, and then finally it gets to the point where the pancreas cannot keep up, and that's when you're taking an injectable insulin, and that's one of the final stages of type 2 diabetes. And I've had people coming in 12, 15 units of insulin they've gotten so bad, and who caused it? Their medical doctor did. The reason why is they told them, don't worry about it. We'll keep giving you medications. We can always, switch you over to insulin. And they misled them as far as what it took to overcome insulin resistance in the first place. So increasing insulin and slowing gastric emptying, when I look at that, I'm saying, well, maybe you should just eat more fat and protein and lay off on the simple carbohydrates that exit the stomach very quickly. So hopefully, guys, you're sticking with me and you're seeing that there's a problem with this. Here's the problem with these weight loss, quote unquote, medications that are really just type 2 diabetes medication. They're going to increase insulin resistance. If you are causing a decrease in stomach acid and slowing gastric emptying, what about poor nutrient absorption as well? If you keep trying to drive up insulin by the pancreas, can you eventually cause what is known as pancreatic fatigue, meaning the pancreas can no longer keep up with how much you're demanding the release of insulin from the beta cells of your pancreas? Because yes, people look at type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, non-insulin dependent means you're insulin resistant. Type 1 diabetes, everybody thinks, well, it's an autoimmune condition, which by the way is also getting worse as well. It's an autoimmune condition in which there's been destruction of the pancreas, but you also can become a type 2, then a type 1, in which basically if you keep running the pancreas ragged by demanding more and more insulin because insulin resistance continues to get worse, there's going to be a point where the beta cells of the pancreas will not be able to keep up. Keep making it run wind sprints and eventually it will give up. And now you have type 2 diabetes and also type 1 caused by pancreatic fatigue. But what's interesting about these medications is even the doctors have admitted that, oh, you need to be on these for the rest of your life. Because here's what happens. If you say, I've reached my weight loss goal and I'm going to go off of these medications, then you will rebound as far as the weight gain is concerned. And I want you to think about it. You take away the medications, your pancreas will not be able to keep up anymore with the amount of insulin that's demanded, which means you're going to have an elevation of blood sugars. You're going to have an increase of fat that's getting stored. And that's why, oh, you go off the medications and you're going to experience rebound weight gain. I even heard a doctor said, well, of course you need to be on these medications for your whole life because it's no different than blood pressure medication. If you're diagnosed with high blood pressure, you need to be on blood pressure medication for the rest of your life. And I'm looking at this and I'm saying, my goodness, do you know how many people that have been able to go off of blood pressure medication as a result of our approach and as a result of our care? Being on blood pressure medication is not a life sentence. If you get to the cause, the body will normalize. And it's the same thing that I'll say regarding these medications is find the reason why, and the body will start to normalize. But it's a lot easier, guys, to take a pill than it is to put in the hard work, than getting to the cause. And many times people want a quick fix. They want an easy solution. And I never, ever want an easy solution in my life. That's why somebody asked me one time and they said, hey, Dr. Nate, if someone could give you a pill that you would get all the benefits of exercise without actually having to exercise, would you do it? My answer right away was zero, no, absolutely not in 100 years. And they looked at me like they were surprised. Yeah, but you get all the benefits of exercise without having to do it. And I said, the reason why I would always do it, because working towards something is one of the greatest rewards. Because if I didn't have to work for it up here, I would become a very soft person. And I never ever want to be a soft person. I don't want to be a soft person in my business. I don't want to be a soft person in my family. I don't want to be a soft person for my kids, because the greatest transformation and the greatest thing when it comes to the journey of health is not the end result, it's who you become in the process. So lifetime use is what they say. You'll need to be on it forever. And by the way, these medications have been around since I believe about 2005, for 17 years or so. But they've only studied it in the result of weight loss for about 7 years. Makes you wonder, the longest long-term study when it comes to weight control is for 7 years. That makes me extremely nervous. So it's kind of like this. Let me give you a parallel, okay? Insulin resistance is kind of like this. Whenever you douse yourself with high amounts of hormone or drugs or anything that's stimulating the nerve system or the cells, receptors down regulate, okay? They down regulate. This is one of the reasons why you need to have more and more of a certain drug in order to elicit the same effect, whether it's nicotine, whether it's smoking, whether it's pot, whether it's heroin, more and more, because in high amounts, the receptors down regulate. They lose the sensitivity. This is the same thing when it comes to leptin resistance too within the hypothalamus, is that high amounts of leptin means you develop leptin resistance. So I want you to think, if you've ever smoked, you start off in one cigarette, boy, it absolutely lights you up. But after 5 years, one cigarette doesn't cut it anymore. Now you're up to a pack a day. You need more nicotine to elicit the same response. You need more insulin to elicit the same response. And that's called insulin resistance. So I want you to think of it. It's kind of like the smoker who goes to the doctor and says this, hey, doc, listen, I'm up to a pack a day. I don't like it. I need that in order to get the same response when it comes to nicotine. What you got for me? What do you think that you should do? Now, probably in your head, you're saying, well, you want to be more sensitive to nicotine, quit it, go cold turkey. But the doctor says, hey, you know what? What I recommend is rather than become more nicotine sensitive, let's just drive up nicotine even more. So my prescription is go ahead and go to 2 packs a day, and boy, you will really feel it. And then you do the 2 packs, and then it's like, well, now I need to be at 3 packs. And you see that there's no good resolution when it comes to it. If you want to be nicotine sensitive again, you need to go cold turkey and resensitize the receptors. And it's the same thing when it comes to insulin. If you're having a hard time as far as losing weight and you see your insulin levels through the roof, even before you have a problem with blood sugar, how do you reset insulin or lower your insulin? You do what is necessary to say, I wonder what causes a release of insulin. It's not just sugar, but what do I need to do in order to help reset my insulin receptors? Guys, this is one of the reasons why the Wellness Way No Sugar Challenge has over 20,000 people in it. And you should see what they're saying even after just 21 days of being on no sugar. I didn't say no carbs, but I said certain sugars with glycemic index over a certain amount. So I want you to think of this. If you're nicotine resistant, you don't smoke more, you smoke less. And if you are insulin resistant, you don't drive up insulin more, you drive down insulin to become more sensitive to it. Here's a perfect example. Here's a person who comes in, hemoglobin A1C, pre-diabetic, weight loss resistant, okay? Insulin levels are at 60. Now, I looked at her and I said, your pancreas isn't going to be able to keep up anymore. It needs that much insulin just to keep your average blood sugars over 3 months at 6.0. That is extremely high. Now, we didn't want to drive up her insulin levels even more to try to drive down her blood sugar, to try to then get that blood sugar within to the cells and then cause damage to them. Instead, what we did is made her more insulin sensitive. So this is after about 4 months. You can see insulin down to 15, still high, but getting better. And then you look at hemoglobin A1C down to 5.2. So if you look at this, 4 times less insulin in order to even lower her blood sugar even more. And what do you call that? Reestablishing insulin sensitivity. So if you think about it, if she would have gone to an obesity specialist, all they would have done, given her a GLP-1 and agonist, drive up insulin even more, exhaust her pancreas, maybe seen some weight loss take place, but leave her in a more unhealthy position as a result. And guys, the reason why doctors can get away with this is because they're not testing you properly. Are they testing your insulin levels, or are they just testing your blood sugar? Are they testing your insulin levels? Are they just testing just A1C? Are they testing insulin, even leptin, or are they just testing just your fasting glucose? There's a big difference between the two. Testing insulin will show where you're trending. Testing your A1C or just your blood sugars gives you a snapshot of just over, right then, and your A1C over 90 days, but it doesn't tell you where you're heading. Insulin actually does tell you where you're heading. Now, another thing, if you go and you look at some of the websites for some of these medications, is you'll see a warning sign. And this comes from 2013 from PubMed in the journal Diabetes Care. And they said, regarding the controversy of whether GLP-1 based therapy can increase the risk for specific malignant disease like pancreatic carcinoma and thyroid cancer, our conclusion is that apparently there is neither firm evidence in favor of this hypothesis nor evidence strong enough to rule out any such increased risk or results available at present. Okay, so I want you to think about it. If you say, hey, there's an increased risk of pancreatic cancer, there's an increased risk of thyroid cancer, and if doctors say, well, right now we don't know, you know what I tell them? Shame on you. Because the first thing that you're supposed to do is first do no harm. It's not like, well, we don't have any evidence to show that it kills you, so let's go ahead and use it. And remember, the longest long-term studies that they have is for 7 years for long-term use. Now, I don't know that many people who got lung cancer from smoking for 7 years, but if you keep damaging the lining of the lungs with toxins and inflammatory chemicals, then it is going to cause a reaction. The cellular change of cancer will take place, which is interesting why they say, pancreatic carcinoma. Well, if you're running it ragged, there's a chance that it's going to cause a lot of oxidative damage because you're making your pancreas work a whole heck of a lot harder. So if you look at actually Medline Plus, you can go to semaglutide injection, which is basically what this is. They have an important warning that they do talk, and this is to the present. Just pulled this about 3 days ago. And you can see that there are things that you may increase the risk of developing tumors in the thyroid, including medullary thyroid carcinoma. So I want to tell you this, guys, because the oath that doctors take is to first do no harm. Not our oath is to first make you happy, to first give the patient what they want, to first try to make the patient happy. That's a great business model, but that's not a good healthcare model. So I want you to think of this. All drugs that have been removed by the FDA were first approved by the FDA. And you can go and look at the drugs that have been removed by the FDA over the last 25 years, and you will see an enormous amount of medications that have been taken off the market that were first approved by the FDA. And many times they don't know the side effects, the long-term consequences of them until about 15 years later. Look at all of these COX-2 inhibitors. If you don't know what I'm talking about, like Bextra, if you are looking at these arthritis type medications, they estimate hundreds of thousands of people have died from taking these arthritis medications, these COX-2 inhibitors. And remember, they were approved by the FDA. They actually, Pfizer, who was a manufacturer, one of them, knew it was going to cause an increase in heart attacks, knew it was going to cause an increase in strokes. They suppressed the data. And they said, you know what, this is going to be such a blockbuster drug. If we just take 10% of our earnings, put it in a kitty, then we're more than happy to do the payouts for all of the lawsuits and the fines that we're going to pay. Just remember, there's many, many pharmaceutical medications that are habitual offenders for suppressing data. They are habitual offenders for misleading the public on the efficacy of drugs. And over the last 2 to 3 years, if you follow what I've been talking about, this one is no exception. So I have a lot of leeriness when it comes to them stating the effectiveness of drugs and things like that. So the big picture is this, guys, is you are being misled by the medical profession when it comes to weight loss. You're being misled. And that's my opinion. You can argue all you want, but tell me why I am wrong. Tell me why that you don't believe that it's going to cause insulin resistance. Tell me why it's not going to cause problems with pancreatic fatigue, leading to type 1 diabetes in regards to pancreatic fatigue. Tell me why somehow going on a medication in perpetuity is somehow beneficial to the patient. And tell me why that have you actually led them down a right path? Have you sat beside them and taught them the fundamentals of health, the fundamentals of nutrition, the fundamentals, or have you just said, go ahead and let's put you on this medication and let's weigh you, okay? And let's see how much weight that you have lost. So you're being misled, and that's my opinion, but I'm going to guarantee you there's a lot of other people who think like me that are going to say the same thing. And if you disagree, I want to ask you this. If you disagree, is it because you benefit tremendously from a financial perspective by having people be on these medications? So, excuse me, how do you do this? So number one, stop your sugars. A lot of times people will say, oh, sugars, I don't have sugars. I don't have the finely granulated powder, that most people are addicted to. No, it's not cocaine, it's actually sugar. But we're talking about things that turn to simple sugars inside the body. Stop your sugars. You want to make it, here's a tip. You want to make it easy? Anything that you eat, glycemic index over 50, Google it. Glycemic index of carrots, glycemic index of potatoes, glycemic index of wheat bread, glycemic index of a watermelon, glycemic index of whatever it might be, of my Ritz cracker. Look at the glycemic index. If it's over 50, then don't eat it. You should be having carbs, but they should be slowly digestible carbs, large chain carbohydrates that take a while for the body to break down, and they don't spike your blood sugar and then have a high insulin response as a result. What else also affects your weight loss? How you exercise affects your weight loss. Fatty liver, guys, affects your weight loss. Guys, stress affects your weight loss. What do you mean by stress? Well, do you know that when you have a stress response, you're going to have a mobilization of sugars? And if you are constantly having a stress response and a mobilization of sugars, you're going to have an insulin response in order to put it into cells used for energy. And if it doesn't, It's going right back into fat storage again. And then all you're doing is exposing yourself because of stress to chronic levels of insulin every single day. And guys, the last thing is too, is even short chain fatty acids. So how many people are talking about, hey, you want to increase your insulin sensitivity, stop your sugars, start exercising differently, address your fatty liver, address your stress, and also address the possibility that you might be severely deficient in short chain fatty acid production. And how do you get that? By having a healthy microbiome and eating enough what is known as resistant starches. Look at this right here from PubMed. This is just actually comes from January of 2021, just 2 years ago. Modulation of short chain fatty acids is a potential therapy method for type 2 diabetes mellitus. Okay. How many times the doctor sat you down and say, hey, maybe we should make sure you increase your resistant starches to help with your blood sugar control? So the answer is this, guys, when you're talking about weight loss, the answer is to get tested. So when people ask me, what is your protocol? I did a video about, hey, here's why belly bloating happens. Here's why you get a food belly after you eat. And people said, well, give me a protocol to do it. Well, here's my protocol. Get tested. So get tested. Guys, that's why we run so many different types of tests. These are tests that your doctor will not run for you. The reason why they will not run for you, quit banging your head on the wall and trying to get the doctor to run these tests, because very rarely they will. And oftentimes the lab will charge you many $1,000s for these tests, is because they don't do a test that there is not a drug answer for. Does that make sense? That's why when it comes to your thyroid, doctors rarely ever test thyroid antibodies, because the end result is still to be on some kind of thyroid replacement, no matter what's causing it. So you have to get tested based on the individual. So if you were just talking about weight loss, well, yeah, you can test some markers as well. But even when people come in and they want weight loss, they're like, I want these markers. I said, well, test this first, because you need to handle some fires first before you are concerned about weight loss. So think of this. How many of you have gotten a test, have tested your insulin? How about your A1C? How about your ferritin levels? Guys, if you have high ferritin, you do have a fatty liver. How about your C-reactive proteins, a basic inflammatory marker? How about homocysteine levels? How about your cortisol levels? How about your DHES sulfated? How about your vitamin D levels? All of these guys are going to play a role when it comes to weight loss and when it comes to fatty acid metabolism. But how many times are the obesity specialists actually measuring these things? Or are they saying, let's just go ahead and just run with it? Who knows? Maybe they can respond to me by giving me an answer when it comes to this. But I believe that as a result, a person will lose weight, but you're going to make them sicker as a result. And this is something that cannot be sustained over the course of 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years, unless you very well are going to make them a type 2 and a type 1 diabetic as a result. So guys, if you are having weight loss issues, start looking deeper than just your weight loss. You have to look at the whole entire Swiss watch, because technically anything that's happening that is driving down that Swiss watch, whether it's nervous system, whether it's the skin, whether it's the immune system, whether it's the endocrine system, digestive system, all of these things play off of one another, which is why, guys, if you have an immune system issue going on, while that will change your hormones, yes, your thyroid, yes, your estrogen levels, yes, your progesterone, and yes, it can change your digestive system, and yes, it can change your whole entire skin. And this is why, guys, when we get sick, we go to a specialist. And all a specialist is someone who knows more and more about less and less until finally become an expert in nothing. And if you go to a weight loss specialist, my answer is if you lose weight, are you healthier as a result? Or does you just shift a number on a scale and look a little bit skinnier as a result? And I want to end with this, because there's so much pressure in today's society, not to feel good, but what's more important is to look good. And that is because of social media. That is because everybody living their perfect life on social media. And if you look behind the scenes, they're not living their perfect life. Guys, I don't have a perfect life. Not at all. I have struggles. It's not a perfect life, but it's an awesome life. And I don't care, I don't mind sharing some of the struggles that I have had, in the past. But we always want to put our best foot forward when it comes to social media. And you're watching everyone's highlight reels, but they're not broadcasting their struggles. And I want to ask you this question. If what I went over, if it made you a little upset, if it made you maybe a little bit like, I want to respond, you don't know my struggle. But this is an an honest question. If you need to look good in order to feel good, then where will it end? Let me ask that question again. If you need to look good in order for you to feel good, then when is it going to end? When will it end? Because I've seen a lot of people who have come in and they've done gastric bypass. They've done Botox. They've done, you name it, fillers. They've done implants. They've done weight loss medications. And even if they start to look better, it never ends for them. And they continue on the path of continuing doing more and more and not making themselves healthier, but making themselves sicker. But not only that, stressing themselves out more because they'll never accept themselves for who they are. It's the constant pursuit of vanity, the constant pursuit of looking good. Maybe instead we should flip it around. We should teach people, get healthy, feel good about the effort, and everything else would follow. That's why I always say this, guys, get the big idea and everything else will start to follow. So guys, if you enjoyed this, please make sure you share this video with other people. And also let me know your comments. Do you agree? Do you disagree? You're welcome to disagree, but always I say be kind. So guys, again, go to the top of the page. If you are from wherever you're at, doesn't matter, United States, Canada, Europe, Africa, Australia, we have people who watch all across the globe, and you want to attend our journey to Wellness Way Journey to Weight Loss, the biggest roadblocks when it comes to weight loss. Make sure, guys, that you go to the top of the page. If you're on Facebook, go to the top page. If you are on Instagram, go to the top of the page and you will see our Eventbrite link. This is a webinar. There is a charge for it in order to pay for software, streaming, things like that. And go ahead and get registered for that. And then coming up at the end of this month, we'll be doing the approach to inflammation. So if you are from the Chicagoland area and you want to know deeper about inflammation testing, how to work with Wellness Way approach, make sure you get registered for that as well. So guys, I hope that you have an awesome, awesome rest of your day. I have a lot of birthday events to attend this week. And also wish me luck because I am doing a CrossFit competition on Saturday. Yes, this old man came out of retirement to give it a go again. So wish me luck and make sure next Monday I haven't broken my leg or anything like that. Guys, be well, be blessed. I always appreciate you liking, following, and sharing. I hope you guys have an amazing evening and be well. Remember who you are.